First episode of my Locked On Gov, specifically Locked On AP Gov podcast on the Locked On Gov network. And I've spent the majority of the last, 4 or 5 months working on this to have it ready for you guys this year. Put a lot of time and effort and a lot of days and weeks putting this together for you guys so you can be successful on your AP exam in May and so you can see how government works in our lives, why it's important to study it, and why it's important to be active in our democracy or representative republic, and also what it means to be a great or a good citizen here in the United States of America. Right, so it is also about passing an AP exam with as good of a score as you possibly can, with hopefully a perfect score of a 5. That is very much important, but also, and I want to stress, also very important is that we learn how to discuss, debate with each other, and have opposing opinions, have opposing views, and still be able to have a conversation. And then once it's over, we can still be cordial and friendly towards each other and see each other as having worth, and that their opinion, they can have it because it's America. And you can have your own opinion, whether it bothers you or not. Okay, so I really want to take this class, make it as engaging as possible. So we're going to flip it. And my lectures and my content will be done here on my Locked On Gov network, my podcast network on YouTube. And then in class will be as engaging, as rigorous, as relevant, and as relationship oriented as possible, because I'd love for us to make some meaningful connections with people from different backgrounds, different races, different religions, different genders, and be able to have those important conversations in class and to be able to discuss our thoughts and find maybe a compromise, or if we can't compromise, like I said, be able to leave friendly and positive, having an intelligent political debate about the most important things in our country today. All right, so let's get started on topic 1, Unit 1 of AP Gov. So everything here going forward for all these podcasts that I'm going to record for you guys and that I've written and given you in a script format, so it's like a textbook, everything that's in it is pulled from the AP College Board curriculum. Everything in this can be tested on. If it's not in this, they won't test you on it. The AP overlords have given exactly the content that they can pull from and have questions on the exam. And these are 100% modeled after that with some Gen Z flair and slang. And of course, I've tried to make it as relevant and meaningful for you as possible. So I've brought in current events, really important current events to make real world connections, but also pop culture, movies, Taylor Swift, to try and make it as engaging and memorable as possible. All right, so let's lock in my AP Gov squad. I'm Mr. H. I'm your guide, your Chewbacca to the Millennial Falcon, your Frodo to the Ring of Power. But no, I won't make you go hike to Mount Doom. We're not going to do that. But together, we're going to take on AP Gov and take on this journey. And we're going to be in this together, side by side. So I'm not making you climb that mountain, but we're going to go through some difficult journeys together. And I want you to stick with me, stay motivated, stay hyped. So let's go. All right, now let's be real. You might think government is just boring laws, some crusty old, dusty old documents written by some old dudes from long ago. Well, you'd be wrong. They're not just some old documents. They're actually meaningful still today, right? So this stuff matters. This stuff shapes why you can post a meme about a political topic or about politicians and it not be taken down. This is why you can play Fortnite. Yeah, Fortnite. Instead of fighting in a hunger-stricken wasteland for scraps. And why the FBI isn't storming your home for saying Taylor Swift for president out loud. Yes, because they're listening. And if you know the conspiracy, the birds aren't real. They're watching. Oh, and Alexa, stop listening. Because, maybe she is. But before we dive in, let's do a quick vibe check, an aura scan to see who's got that main character energy. We're gonna go through 3 questions, and on Monday we'll recap those first thing. I need you to have a great thought and answer to this. We're gonna have a great round of discussions on it. Question 1, what individual rights are your ride or dies? Your non-negotiables, things you're born with, you can't take away. This is mine. Hands off, or catch me outside. How about that? Number 2, what stuff should government actually provide its citizens? And no, I don't mean free Wi-Fi and free iced coffee for life, though coffee free, gosh, what a great idea. Maybe we should have that. That's not what I mean. And number 3, when things go sideways, whose job is it to hold the government accountable? Is it you, Congress, TikTok influencers, the media? Or is it, well, what about Aragorn, son of Arathorn, rightful heir of the kingdom of Gondor, sword of Elendil in hand, ready to check Sauron, corrupt kings? So if you know, you know. Lord of the Rings, favorite book series, favorite movies of all time. So you might hear some of that as we go on. So think about it, write it down, lock it in. We'll discuss it on Monday. All right, so let's go ahead and jump forward to segment 1. Segment 1, the Enlightenment Avengers, the OG Brain Squad. This is a super important one here because our founding fathers ripped their ideas, plagiarized their ideas, and wrote them into our foundational documents, our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution. You can see all these Enlightenment thinkers' ideas just all over it. And we're going to go through 4 today on the podcast, and then on Monday we're going to go big into a little bit about what they believed. And I know on Friday in the liberty versus order spectrum, we discussed some of these guys. Let's go ahead and hop in on it, right? Okay, so before the Declaration of Independence, that famous breakup letter with King George III of England or Britain, and before red, white, and blue became a fit, before George Washington, there he is, what up, George, was wearing his powdered white wig, there was the Enlightenment. 1600s and 1700s, England, France, these guys were meeting in pubs, shops, discussing big brain ideas about government and how it should look. And they were not just great thinkers, they were absolute disruptors. And you can see here in your text, everything I'm going over, you can find here. They were absolute disruptors. And the first, and some would consider the father of the Enlightenment, that we're going to discuss is Thomas Hobbes, the Lord of the Leviathans, right? Leviathans. So imagine Fortnite with no storms, no rules, no build mode, full-on chaos, people camping at every respawn van or reboot van. That's Thomas Hobbes. His vision of life without government is one of brutality, of violence, and of solitary, brutish existence. And his famous line in his book called The Leviathan, his book was actually called that in the 1600s, 1651. He actually has a famous quote here. This is the most important one to remember. He said that life would be solitary, lonely lives because people are poor, nasty, brutish, animalistic, and these lives would be very short because we would most likely die from violence. And Hobbes' his take on this he'd call it the state of nature. He coined this phrase here. It's like, imagine a world without government, without governance, without laws and protections for you from others. And in this state of nature, this theoretical state of nature, people would be violent. People are not so good. People are bad. At a very pessimistic, borderline cynical, fear of all, right, view of humans and their nature. That people are bad. This guy would have totally obsessed over The Walking Dead and potentially The Purge, if you're bringing in some TV shows you guys might know. So his solution, a social contract, an agreement to give up many freedoms and liberties in order to gain greater protection for your life. The only right that matters is your right to live. In order to make sure you live, take liberty away and take the other things away. and just protect that life. That's government's purpose. And how does he recommend we do this? A big, all-powerful, monstrous police force of a government, an absolute king with total power. And once we give that king our rights and freedoms, we can't take them back. That king is locked in and is absolute and can rule with an iron fist to make sure we can be productive, have businesses, create progress, to collaborate, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to do it because of our nature and our badness, our selfishness instead of otherness. Right, so sounds familiar? Possibly, right? So if you know Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, it sounds kind of like Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith, just before Obi-Wan Kenobi and him have a duel, right? He says, I have brought peace, freedom, security to my new empire, right? The dark side. But Hobbes wasn't the only one with big ideas. The next guy we're about to drop is much more optimistic. Not necessarily pessimistic, right, like Hobbes here, but much more optimistic on humans in that they can work together. They aren't so bad. This guy's name is John Locke, and he is the natural rights remix king. And if Hobbes was like Darth Vader, Locke would be Obi-Wan Kenobi. My loyalty is to the Republic. The force belongs to the people. Locke would clap back saying, chill, bro, you be doing too much to Hobbes. People aren't total gremlins. We have natural rights, life, liberty, and property. Government's job is to protect those rights. And if government doesn't protect those rights, Control, Alt, Delete. Restart the government, reboot it, reset it. It's malfunctioning. They broke the social contract. The government did. And we have an obligation to protest and to revolt and change government, reset it. In Hobbes' world, you can't reset. King gets that power, king has it. But in Locke's world, you can reset it if that government's no longer working to protect our natural rights of life, liberty, and property. All right, so Control, Alt, Delete there. And you can think about this is important here. Thomas Jefferson, the guy that wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Committee of Five, third president, Louisiana purchaser, right? He actually wrote these ideas, plagiarized them respectfully, and put them into the Declaration of Independence. In his quote, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator, big C creator, maybe not a Christian God, but a higher power. Certain unalienable or inalienable rights cannot be taken away, and these rights are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So that last bit there, property from Locke, has been changed to happiness as an abolitionist move to hopefully potentially end slavery later on. But also potentially because land is scarce, property is scarce, and they recognized it's limited, and you can't be like Heimler says, Oprah, you get land, you get land, you get land. And so by changing that to happiness, they were able to plan for the future a little bit better. All right, so that's Locke. You know, if it's that liberty versus order balance. Hobbes is the order king. Locke is the liberty king. And it's that constant, where do we fall there, and where does government fall when making decisions? More Hobbes, more Locke. And that's an ultimate trend for this class here, which we'll be discussing quite often. All right, so let's go ahead and go on to the third Enlightenment thinker, who you'll find that this guy is the most referenced or cited in our foundational document, the Constitution. So he is all over that document, our second government. So Baron de Montesquieu, he's from France. The first two were from England. He's from France. He's the ultimate power splitter supreme. The guy that coined the phrase separation of powers, checks and balances. He said that government can't be trusted. One person with absolute power will be corruptible, will be tyrannical. And so his big idea is separate the powers, separate government, split it into three branches: the legislative branch, the executive branch, the judicial branch. And by doing that, no one will be able to abuse the people. Sorry, my camera's falling apart. All right, so the legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch enforces the laws. Judicial branch interprets the laws. Think the pen, the sword, the shield, or the gavel, right? This is revolutionary stuff for the 1700s. It's like political rock, paper, scissors. Everyone's a democratic seesaw. They're going to balance each other out. This one can beat this one, but this one can beat that one. And by doing so, not one branch can be abusive, can be tyrannical, and can hurt us. They protect our natural rights instead of stepping on our natural rights. Montesquieu knew humans were messy. So the system had to be built to keep things balanced. Balanced. Fair and beef free. Oh, yes. Mostly beef free. And so here's how it plays out. If Congress, the legislative branch, passes a sus bill on polygamy, you can marry as many people as you want. How about that? The president can veto that bill before it becomes a law, sends it back to Congress. Boom, check. But then Congress can vote on it again, and if they get the right number of votes, can override the presidential veto, and it becomes a law. Check. Oh, but whoa, wait a second. This seems shady. This law still isn't supported potentially by all, and the Supreme Court has the option to review it through judicial review. Thanks, Marbury versus Madison court case we'll look into. And they can say this is unconstitutional. Polygamy is not something that is protected. And they can swoop in and yeet it off the books and get rid of it altogether. Check. It's all about balance. Checks and balances, that's no one going full Thanos and snapping our rights out of existence. And get this, James Madison, who we're going to talk about quite a bit and was a president of the United States as well, Federalist with Alexander Hamilton, read Montesquieu's work and he plagiarized it completely and put it respectfully in the United States Constitution. He said, I bet, let's go. The Constitution didn't just inspire Montesquieu, he full-on borrowed the entire plan. His book, The Spirit of Laws, Montesquieu's book, The Spirit of Laws, laid out exactly these three branches of government. All right, so let's move on to the last one, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, another Frenchman here. Now, if Hobbes is this guy that's about total order, Rousseau would say total freedom. Society is what corrupts us. Private property is what corrupts us. Humans in nature are noble savages. We are not brutal savages or brutish. We are noble and fair. And so in his world, he was more like we should be more in a state of nature instead of in this government system with lots of laws and lots of structure. He was like people can actually work together without the government. So Rousseau didn't pull up with chill vibes. That guy pulled up dropping things like man is born free and everywhere man is in chains. That's a quote from him. So man is born free and everywhere in chains. Born free. And then the things we create, the government, the structure, the society, chains us and is the issue. His philosophy, government power comes from the people. Power to the people. Popular sovereignty. People. We have the power. When government fails the people, the game it's game over for the rulers. It's time to revolt, to protest, and to change the government. People have the power. So in this instance, think Black Lives Matter movements in 2020. I think George Floyd protests in 2020. Think climate strikes by Gen Z, Greta Thunberg in 2023. That's Rousseau energy right there. These nationwide protests are definitely what Rousseau would have been wanting. He would have been holding a sign, wearing Crocs out there with you guys saying, bet you guys understood the assignment. Great job. But flip the script here, guys. January 6th, right? When the Capitol was raided by Americans who thought and truly believed that the election, the 2020 election, was stolen, was fraudulent. It did turn violent. And so did those Black Lives Matter. Some of those protests turned violent and into riots as well. So the ultimate question here is Russo siding with turning violent in the Capitol, turning violent in the Black Lives protest movements? No, but he would definitely say that protesting needs to be disruptive, and that protesting needs to be disruptive so that government sees that something's not working. But to turn violent, no, I don't believe Russo would feel that way. And we'll talk about that on Monday for sure. All right, so let's go on. And we've met the Enlightenment Avengers, the big brain OG disruptors. And here's the question. How did these revolutionary ideas actually make their way into American democracy, the DNA of America? So buckle up. We're going to go through 2 of our foundational documents and we'll wrap it up, I promise. I know it's on 21 minutes. Don't hurt me. All right, so picture this. The building of your dreams, right? You're building your dream home. Think of the foundation, right? The foundation of a house has to be solid or the whole home falls, right? That's the Declaration of Independence. That's the cement or the concrete that theoretically holds everything together. And here's what we stand for. Natural rights, life, liberty, and property. Thank you, Locke. Popular sovereignty, Rousseau. Power belongs to the people, not to the elites with money, not to some ruler, right? It's the people who the origin of power comes from. The social contract theory. Thank you, Thomas Hobbes and the others who went deeper with it, right? We agree to give up some rights to gain greater protections for those natural rights. And so it is an agreement with government, and if it's broken, Control, Alt, delete it. And then limited government, that's underneath it would be separation of power and checks and balances. So limited government's this idea that we must keep government smaller but restricted. Government must compete with each other and stop each other and fight with each other, theoretically fight with and argue with each other, and have to be forced to compromise and find something in the middle, right? Middle ground. So without this, nothing stands. That's the Declaration of Independence. The structure then, in which is built on the foundation, is the U.S. Constitution, the second government of the United States. It's the blueprint that turns those ideas into walls, into a shelter, into windows, and the Wi-Fi routers, right? The Constitution organizes the government and says, here's how we'll actually run this place. The Declaration is the pilot episode where we meet the main characters, those ideals of democracy. And the Constitution is the Netflix series where all drama and plot twists unfold. The power struggle happens. All right, so the Declaration of Independence, guys, that's the America's breakup letter, right? Thomas Jefferson in the Committee of Five, Ben Franklin, Livingston, Sherman, Madison, they wrote the ultimate breakup text to King George. And it's basically said this: Dear King George, it's not me, it's you. You violated our natural rights. You ignored our consent of the governed. We deserve better. So we're leaving forever. Peace. Basically what it was. It took like 3 months to ship it on boat to England, but it eventually got there and he read it. That's given Taylor Swift vibes. We are never getting back together. Oh man, what about that song? The Declaration laid the foundational ideas. So you'll find in the Declaration natural rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You'll find popular sovereignty, power comes from the people, and social contract. King George, you broke the contract, so we're revolting. Control, Alt, delete. All right, let's move on. The U.S. Constitution, the blueprint for democracy. So we're going to fast forward to the Philadelphia Convention in 1787. This is after the Articles of Confederation. The first government we'll talk about was weak, and we needed a stronger centralized government, one with a president. And George Washington is there to lead the squad. What's up, George? He's back there, if you can see. And George Washington was there leading the squad. James Madison drafts the blueprint, so he's the father of the Constitution. Alexander Hamilton is the ultimate hype guy. And together, they are the Grand Committee. With the Grand Committee, they build a government based on separation of power, checks and balances, and limited government. Montesquieu all over, for sure. And it wasn't perfect, but it was flexible enough. This Constitution is not perfect, but it's flexible enough to have survived over 250 years with only 17 amendments. And so just to keep that in mind, right, it is not a perfect document, but a living document that really is pretty awesome. So let's lock in these 5 ideals and we'll finish it off, guys, because the AP overlords, this is the main component of this lesson here. The College Board overlords, as Hammer would say, are going to require you to be able to answer questions based off of these 5 ideals, these Enlightenment ideals. All right, so let's go over them. Natural rights, life, liberty, and Locke said property, but Jefferson said happiness. Translation, that's your day one DLC. The government cannot delete these. These are unalienable, cannot be taken away. These are God-given. Man cannot touch them. Popular sovereignty, government only gets power from the people. Translation, we're the Wi-Fi. Government powers down if we unplug it. Social contract, government is in agreement to protect certain rights. That's its job. Translation, terms and conditions. And we may revoke these terms and conditions at any time if we want to. For important things, not for small things, but generational issues. Limited government, power is restricted by the Constitution and laws. Translation, admin rights. Nah, we set the password, fam. We set it, right? And so we live limited and structured government in a way where they can check and balance each other to prevent one branch from dominating the rest. And then republicanism, haven't mentioned much of, but this one here is pretty much we elect representatives to go make choices for us. So we're not a direct democracy. We are a representative democracy, indirect. And we elect representatives through elections to go make choices in government for us. All right, so we got to master those. And on Monday, we got to master those so we can answer any question on the AP Gov exam. All right, and so let's go ahead and do the outro here with you. The Enlightenment ideals aren't dusty old theories locked in some museum basement. They're not just history. They're still shaping our world, our debates, and rights today. When people protest, that's popular sovereignty in action. When SCOTUS protects your right to speak your mind and defend your privacy, that's natural rights being tested. When Congress and the president check each other, that's limited government at work. And he vetoes when Congress overrides a veto. You're not just living in democracy, you're building it every single day. Every question you ask, every vote you cast, every meme you post about the system, it's all a part of the story. So until next time, peace. Stay bold, stay curious, and stay locked on Gov.